Life's Snags and How to Meet Them by Lord Baden-Powell. Bit 15. Climbing as Education. Climbing gives, beside exaltation of the body, exaltation of the spirit. General Smuts. It is natural to the young human being to climb. With its ape heredity, the baby at its earliest can hang on by hands and feet. For youngsters of 3 and upwards, climbing is invaluable as an education. I mean by education the preparation of the child in health and character to be valuable as a citizen. Climbing undoubtedly develops the health and strength in a better way than any physical drill can effect, because it is a natural, not an artificial exercise. But more than this, it develops at the same time such qualities as self-reliance, courage, caution, endurance, ambition, patience, and other elements of character which do not come in at all in physical drill or jerks. Moreover, climbing supplies interesting adventure which leads the youngster on to practice it for himself, whether alone or in company. It opens up a health-giving hobby which can carry him on in progressive stages up to and far into manhood. At 3 years of age, for instance, a climbing or obstacle track can be made of furniture, chairs, tables, books to represent stepping stones, chests of half-open drawers, etc., arranged around the room, or better still, in the open air, with wheelbarrows, hurdles, stepping stones, plank bridges, garden seats, fallen trees, ditches, gates, etc. The zest with which children can take this on, hour after hour, and the skill which they develop in tackling their obstacles have been an eye-opener to me. You see the tender muscles, thew and sinew, doing their work under a direction that becomes cool-headed and calculating after a few educative tumbles. On the left-hand page, we see a cowboy riding horseback, and the quote underneath says, "Let not your ambition to climb high lead you to mount the high horse, or he may give you the chuck," i.e. throw you off. Later comes the adventure that is dear to every boy, that of climbing trees. Ladders, masts, and rope climbing are all valuable to this end and give practice in towns or playgrounds where space and opportunities are limited. Tree climbing can be amplified to a sport with the intelligent use of the climbing rope, and thus almost any tree comes within the scope of the boy's climbing power. This affords tremendous interest. Success then gives the sense of achievement and conquest of difficulty through sheer endeavour, which produces a valuable self-confidence for tackling a difficult job. For scouts, tree climbing is useful, since incidentally it involves some elementary knowledge of botany, in order that the climber can distinguish the different species in view of their respective climbable properties. Thus the oak supplies a sure stance for man or rope, but like the elm, occasionally lets you down with an outwardly sound but inwardly rotten branch. The beech, with its huge, smooth bole, looks unpromising to the climber, were it not that he knows he can trust himself to the small twigs of its down-hanging branches, while if he pursues the same tactics with the fir or pine, they would break at the first strain. Team climbing adds a fresh interest to the sport when 3 or 4 work in combination with a rope. This also gives additional education in the moral qualities of leadership, discipline, good temper, unselfish cooperation, and emulation. Tree climbing with a rope leads on to rock climbing, a difficult and more dangerous sport, but when the climbers have been gradually and progressively trained for it from childhood, it loses something of its danger. Cliff climbing at any part of the coastline gives the opportunity for another special art by itself. Among some adventurous spirits, the sport of house climbing is an attraction. Witness the celebrated human fly who undertook to make his way up the face of any skyscraper in Chicago, down to the boy at Oundle who scaled the church spire, or the one at Eton who surmounted the clock tower, or my own secretary who could boast that he had entered most of the colleges in Cambridge without using the gateway. But best of all is mountain climbing. It makes true men, men of sinew, energy and daring, lovers of nature, beauty and religion. There are few countries where it cannot be learned by practice. The mountains need not necessarily be lofty for the purpose. You can get just as much excitement out of climbing on a comparatively small mountain as on a big one. It needs just the same nerve, endurance and skill, and the same good comradeship on the rope. You can get just as bad a smash by falling 200 feet as by falling 20,000. General Bruce, the leader of an expedition to Mount Everest, told me, "It isn't the height of the mountains that counts so much as the difficult bits to be overcome." His Majesty, the King of the Belgians, began climbing as a boy of 11 and is still an ardent mountaineer. He told me how much he preferred it to any form of physical training for boys, since it not only gave health and strength, but also the moral qualities, pluck, endurance, self-reliance and unselfishness, in a way that nothing else could. His Holiness the Pope had been a mountaineer, and has quite recently published a book describing his experiences and commending that noble form of sport. Lastly, there is your soul. A curious thing to find in mountain climbing, but there it is. General Smuts, the Premier of South Africa, when unveiling a war memorial on Table Mountain, said, "The mountain is not merely something externally sublime. It has a great historical and spiritual meaning for us. It stands for us as the ladder of life, nay, more, as the ladder of the soul, and in a curious way the source of religion. From it came the law, from it came the Sermon on the Mount. We may truly say that the highest religion is the religion of the mountain. What is that religion? When we reach the mountain summits, we leave behind all the things that weigh heavily down below on our body and spirit. We leave behind all sense of weakness and depression. We feel a new freedom, a great exhilaration, an exaltation of the body no less than of the spirit. We feel a great joy. The religion of the mountain is, in reality, the religion of joy and of the release of the soul from things that weigh it down with a sense of weariness, sorrow, and defeat." So when you climb your mountain in company with others. But when you reach the glorious summit with its vast outlook, sit down apart and think. And as you think, drink in the wonderful inspiration of it all. When you come down to earth again, you will find yourself another man in body and mind, and what is more, in spirit, the spirit of broad-minded outlook.